acquire language, no matter what language we're learning, whether it's English or Spanish or any language, whether you're a newborn in the country or you just move somewhere and you're learning that language, there's an acquisition progress, basically. You listen so long before you speak, and then you speak so long before you read, and then you read so long before you write, because each of those levels add on to the other, all right? So oftentimes we are asking our kids in preschool and definitely in kindergarten to do a good bit of writing. We want those wonderful thoughts in their brain to get out on paper, of course. But what happens then is we encourage them and create opportunities for them to practice spelling incorrectly. So they do what's called inventive spelling, and then they pretty much continue to do inventive spelling all through their life, actually, because at no point do they really fix and put the focus on fixing spelling. And it's really, really very crucial to do, because every time you do something incorrectly, it imprints further into your brain so you get better at doing it incorrectly. And this is a subject that's very passionate and dear to my heart, because my daughter, who was a struggling reader and why I got into doing this instruction in the first place, was great at any spelling test she took, but she could not write accurately or spell accurately in her writing. And I have actually, this is from 1997, and this is her first ever, or not first ever, but this was a writing piece that was on the wall in second grade. Okay, so it was on the wall in second grade, and there was a picture, so I knew what it was about, and so I understand why we have kids look at the pictures, because if you can't read the words, the pictures at least tell you what's going on. So this writing, I put the black in here since then, but I used it at our teacher training. Was up on the wall, and I was reading it with tears running down my face, and the teacher came out and said, "What's the matter?" I'm like, "My kid gets 100% on every spelling test. What's wrong with her?" Okay, and you wouldn't really be able to read this. We'll take a picture so you can try, but the teacher could read it fine, and I said, "What about, you know, the rest of the world?" So how do you fix this? All right, now it took me only a few hours to teach Colleen how to read. However, to fix her spelling, it was about 2 years before she spelled the word was correctly, because she had practiced doing it wrong so much. So when we look at the English language, and I like that I'm sitting by this little poem here, because even in the first line here, it has the word tough. Those 4 letters are 2 sounds, It has bow. All right, now the 4 letters are O. Then cough. Now it's 2 different sounds, off, dough. It's O. Down here, it's oo and through. This shows you why spelling, not just spelling, but reading is very difficult with the English language, but spelling is much more of a challenge. So we need to teach our kids what to do and how to fix their errors, all right? And I will hold this up again, and I'll read it to you in case you don't want to wonder forever what this is. Now I can read this kind of writing very well because I've been teaching kids in school so much. It says, and you'll be surprised at some of this. Once upon a time, there was a town called Cloudy with a chance of golden retrievers, and I was the only one there. I had 101 dogs, and me and my sister loved dogs. That's why we went there. There's one period here. There's some uppercase in the middle. She had BD reversals, so her D's are uppercase. No punctuation, basically. No capitalization. 19 misspelled words out of 40. So how are we going to fix this? What happens typically in schools is they say, well, we'll fix 1 out of every 10 or 20 or 40 writing pieces. So the kids practice very much doing it wrong, and then really do not get the practice on how do we fix this. So we are really quite obsessed with fixing handwriting. Now, just showing them, like if I were to hand this back to her with these on the top correct, that's going to help me be a better speller. Oops, just messed up my microphone, sorry. That's going to help me be a better speller, but it's not going to help her. She needs to write it and hopefully say the sounds as she writes it to get for her to be a better speller. So we have a lot of ways now that we have devised, and we have been working on it for years, to help teachers help their kids, whether they're in high school or second grade, turn this around. Okay, because this is not okay. We don't want to put into their brains wrong and then continue to reinforcing wrong, because when we do that, they just get very good at doing it wrong. So it's really important. Now, here's another one. This is one where the teacher was in my training, and this is her daughter several years ago, and I won't show the name, but this teacher said, she went to parent-teacher conferences, and she said, we had a whole stack of writing that my daughter did, and she was so excited about the writing. And she said, I said, well, what about, we got some problems here, as you can see. What do we do to fix the spelling? And she said, well, in April, after they've done a whole lot of writing pieces, they'll fix 1. and that's what they do. So they have basically 20 to 39 writing pieces that they have practiced doing wrong, and then they only fix one. So the fixing part doesn't stick. The doing it wrong part is what sticks. So I'll read this story to you and how it's supposed to be read. I won't read it what it says there, but or what it looks like it should be. So my mom made me wear tights. I was wondering why I had to wear tights. I was happy. They were comfortable. I liked the tights, I said. I could slide back and forth and side to side. So again, this kind of writing, what do we want to do? We certainly want, just like you or I, to do a sloppy copy. So we are going to write our writing piece out, okay, and it's our sloppy copy, and then we're going to edit. We don't, in EBLI, let any student have what the final thing that they see be incorrect like that. It's going to have correct punctuation, correct conventions, correct spelling, capitalization is going to be right, because research shows, brain research shows that the last thing that you see is what's imprinted on your brain. And there's some great research that was cited in one of Diane McGinnis's book. It's called Early Reading Instruction and How our brain learns to read, or something like that. But early reading instruction is the first part. And she talks about how there was a research study on college students that showed if you have great college students who are great spellers and you show them misspelled words, they'll become worse spellers. If they're good, they'll become worse spellers. If they're poor spellers, they'll become worse spellers by seeing misspelled words. So what happens is oftentimes teachers, even if they were great spellers and won the spelling bee in school, they become worse spellers because as teachers they see so many misspelled words. So we really need to shift that with our kids. There's a mindset that it's okay and actually preferable to get your kids to spell incorrectly because we want them writing. We do want their thoughts out. I recommend if you have young kids, let them dictate a story to you, draw a picture, you write it down for them, talk about beginning, middle, and end until you've taught them to read, because then we can get to the writing piece. Because that hierarchy, if they have a problem with listening, they're going to have a problem with speaking and reading and writing. If they have a problem with speaking, it's going to impact their reading and writing. If they have a problem with reading, it's going to impact their writing. So our scores nationally and in our state and everywhere are typically reading is not so great, and spelling and writing anyway, scores are a whole lot worse. And it's because writing is a lot more challenging, so they have to produce the spellings, and there's 17 ways to spell sh, and there's 11 ways to, or 10 or 11 ways to spell the sound s, 13 ways to spell the sound er. So they have to decide, and if they haven't read much, it's just going to exacerbate their spelling problems, and we don't want to make their life harder, we want to make their life easier. So please don't let your kids continue to practice spelling wrong and incorrectly, and show them how to fix it, and then get them to recopy and redo the work instead of just you showing them what it is. Because again, you write it for them, then you get to be a better speller. We need them to be better spellers. So be mindful about that and think about what that's doing for our kids when we encourage them to practice doing things incorrectly, and maybe switch from doing that.